Hey guys, it's been a while. It's been nearly a month, and sorry to have disappeared like that for those of you who were looking out. Um, Something unfortunate happened within the month, and I decided just to keep away from a lot of things for at least a month until it was over. If you want to know specifics, well, a good friend of mine, died of some very complicated medical condition, and it's not really something that I'm too happy about because it felt almost as though I didn't pay enough attention to him. And yeah, I mean, quite honestly, no one really paid attention to him for a while just because he's been so reclusive and it's been hard to keep note of everything that's happening in everyone's lives. But it turns out that if we probably had paid a little bit more attention, maybe we could have helped. Um, you know, and I hope it's the same case for everyone else out there that I know that I would be able to help them if, even if they don't reach out, but it's just so difficult when people don't reach out. And I'm sure everyone can relate to this in some way or another. If you guys are the type to really, keep track of your friends, that's great. I've never really been too good at it, so yeah, sucks to be me. But it is what it is. I'm back, and I decided let's just keep going, and go strong and just pick up where we left off, which is a bunch of film reviews, a bunch of video games, and I feel that I should keep on pushing on whatever is going on in my channel, despite having only what has it been, like 300 subs or something. Yeah, so I feel like this channel's never really been about making money on YouTube or anything like that. It's never really been about becoming famous. It's just, a sort of this diary that I keep online where I can leave my film reviews, my video games experiences, and, hopefully if there are people out there who need that, they could use it in some way for themselves or for their gaming or for whatever, right? That was my idea. So I realized that that could be a friend in need too. It could be someone who truly needs the content as well. So why should I stop? But yeah, here I am, retrospectively thinking about how things could have been different, and how things never really are. So to the film reviews. So I got a bunch lined up, and I'm not going to take too long to go through each and every one of them. I'm just going to just run through them really quickly because not a lot of them have been very good films. I'm going to start off with The Black Phone. So I watched this only recently. I know it's been out for a year now, but yeah, I only had the chance to watch this very recently. And I mean, I really like Ethan Hawke. I've had great experiences watching him in films like Predestination, and yeah, he's a splendid actor for sure. But the Black Phone I felt really short of the mystery and drama that's surrounding what is supposed to be like this child kidnapping incident. And also the behavioral pattern of the killer is just so, I don't know, it feels really disconnected from the tension that the kid is facing. Because at the beginning, the killer does pay more visits to the boy who he kidnaps. But as time goes on, he doesn't really pay much frequent visits and he just waits for the boy to show up. Apparently, he's playing this game called Naughty Boy, where only if the person who has been kidnapped tries to escape, can the killer actually do something. And if, in this case, Finney doesn't really try to escape, the grabber can't really do anything to go and stop him. So he's just gonna remain in that room, getting fed over time and staying in, this kind of solitude. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So essentially, all Finney had to do was just wait things out, because the authorities would eventually be able to find somewhat of a location. But the authorities also don't seem very intelligent. They really needed to rely on some kind of supernatural ability that the siblings have been having, basically Finny and Gwen. So Gwen essentially is Finny's sister. She has these kind of psychic powers to have some kind of what do you call those? Not premonition. It's the one where you'll get a vision only like out of nowhere. Yeah, I guess just some visions basically, and she can predict the locations of certain people. She can predict if the grabber is coming to grab them, if certain people end up dying. So these kind of things Gwen can see, and it all happens within this small town. So it's a very straightforward, very simple, very linear story. You pretty much can predict the ending from the start, which is, oh, okay, so the sister is going to have a vision that will send her the location of Finney, and Finney is going to be kidnapped. And then there's this whole other plot that's going on between Finney and the grabber, within the grabber's house. Basically, the grabber is just he's going to show up to give Finney food every ever so often, and other than that, he does not bother. He does not check the room which Finney has been building up over time to become sort of a an environment he can use to his advantage. So he carves out holes in the floor, he gets some wires stuck from the wall, he prepares all of these sorts of things. At the same time, Finney has this unusual ability to communicate with the dead, and specifically the dead children who were kidnapped by the grabber. And this is possible because those souls are all roaming about within the same room that he is in. And so he keeps being able to get this phone call from this phone on the wall, which is the black phone, which is actually not connected to anything. It doesn't have a wire connected to it. So he's just getting calls out of nowhere, and he's able to answer those calls, and he's getting tips from these dead spirits to guide him to sort of protect himself and prepare the room so that he can actually challenge and face and defeat the killer. But all this pretty much is I feel like a very subplot-ish thing. It's like the main plot became the subplot because in the end, his sister Gwen was going to be able to eventually alert the authorities of the actual location of her brother, and that's how the authorities actually go and find him. And it just turns out by coincidence that he actually frees himself from the killer at the exact same time that his sister leads the authorities to his location. So one thing the coincidence is probably planned. It's too obvious that it happens too perfectly towards the end. Considering this is a story about a child kidnapper, I would expect things to go out a little bit more roughly. But yeah, things just turn out to be very, very perfect ending towards the very end. And Finney does manage to fight off the grabber by dropping him inside a hole that he dug on the ground and beating him up eventually. But yeah, I mean, things could have gone south really, really fast. And it seems almost like Finney's preparation only made sense because the grabber has this deranged brother in the same house, Terrence. And Terrence is apparently trying to work the case thinking he's some Sherlock Holmes shit, but his brother is actually the grabber who's living in the same house. I don't know why this subplot is here as well. It's so strange. Like the connection between Terrence and the grabber is nearly not there. It's just like, oh, the grabber knows his brother's upstairs and his brother's going to figure things out, but the grabber is downstairs kidnapping kids. It's really, really strange why they had this dynamic. It could have just been the grabber alone, and Terrence is not necessary at all. And the detectives as well don't really do too much of a job. Some of them are there to crack some jokes, which makes no sense. And yeah, they do their own thing, and all of these other characters don't really play too much of a role other than the kids who actually got kidnapped. So yeah, those kids that got kidnapped, they have a basic role, I would say. The rest of them are just meh, whatever. Um, so yeah, eventually they do find him at the exact same time he escaped from the grabber, and that's pretty much it. Very predictable story, nothing too unusual. Other than both the performances of Mason Thames and Ethan Hawke, everyone else was just subpar, at least for me. But if you guys did enjoy this film, do let me know because I feel that it could have been done a lot better. It could have been actually more gripping and more intense in the sense where the grabber does come to check on Finney more often, maybe because he's obsessed in some way that he always has to come. Maybe there's like a peephole through the door, and Finney has to, be wary when he's digging things because we don't quite feel the tension at some points. You kind of relax too much because you almost know, the grabber's just not going to come. Because if the grabber does come in this scenario, it ruins all of the plot, and there's no way that, um, it would, it would be just too messy to clean up the plot after that. So yeah, there's only one part which seemed like a reasonable twist, which is Finney just managed to unlock the this kind of padlock at the front door of the grabber's house, and he makes a run for it, and the grabber eventually does catch up to him before he can get help. Even that scene doesn't really make sense because Finney is literally running down the street shouting for help, and there's literally no one in the neighborhood who bats an eye or turns around to even listen or hear the screams of a kid literally shouting his lungs out running down the street. Really, really strange. And also, in that particular scene where the grabber goes to retrieve Finney, who's escaping, the grabber is driving a truck and he's driving on the road. And Finney decides to run on the same road the truck is driving on, which makes zero sense. Like, if a truck is chasing you down the road, all you gotta do is get off road. And that forces whoever's driving the truck to stop the truck, put on the handbrake if they ever care, open the door. I mean, I'm sure the grabber doesn't wear a seatbelt, right? Get off the truck and run on foot. By which time you would have easily made like a 3 or 4 second distance between you and whoever's chasing you. And that should be enough to slip through housing areas, continue screaming your lungs out for another 3 seconds, maybe even more, and use that distance to your advantage to keep crying out for help or running at people's houses and just slamming at their doors, right? So I don't know, it's such a massive plot hole that I just couldn't give in to the fact that the story, with Ethan Hawke as this grabber was crafted pretty well at the start, but then just, yeah, it turned out really, really bad as time went on. But yeah, that's the first film. Let's see. The next one should be Bullet Train. Yeah, so Bullet Train was an interesting film. I did not expect such a cool film to come out from Brad Pitt and the buddies. At least I at least I think they are his buddies. Let me tell you that all the actors who performed in this film are pretty high profile. The main actors of this film is, of course, Brad Pitt as Ladybug, Aaron as Tangerine, Brian as Lemon, Joey as Prince, Andrew as Kimura, uh, and Hiroyuki does play a reasonable part in this, and Michael Shannon shows up towards the very end to play a very small part, and Sandra Bullock is almost like a cameo sort of role. The rest of these actors are just side characters who just show up here and there. They don't really do too much. Um, and of course, the final villain is eventually revealed to be the Hornet. Um, yeah, who is like very important, very dangerous character towards the very end, but only shows up in the last, I don't know, half an hour or so. But yeah, it's actually a reasonably long film. I was quite surprised that they took this all the way to 2 hours, and they really spent time to build up on each characters, give us like a backstory. Although, I mean, I like the flashback style with the anime character reveal sort of, how can you put it, like trailer, which they show of each character as they go through their individual backstories. I found that pretty cute and hilarious, but other than that, the characters themselves are not very compelling. Like, besides their British accent or British and Scottish accent or something, besides that, uh, you know, these two fruits, tangerine and lemon, are just whatever assassins, right? Brad Pitt has a lot more going on for him because he actually spent more time with the character. You do eventually learn to like Lemon and Tangerine as time goes on because they show the dynamics they have as partners, as the sort of brotherly connection that they have, even though they're work partners, and also the mission that they're trying to achieve. But they screw up from the very beginning, right? Because so it's pretty much coming that they are going to be chased down by this thing called the White Death, and that's actually Michael Shannon. So Andrew Koji has a very, I felt, underplayed character in this story. He's just pretty much a victim of circumstance. He's trying to find a way to save this girl who's like related to him, and he can't quite uh, get on the right foot of anything basically because he's constantly being like bombarded by these other assassins who are just way better than him, who are just going about their own plots, and he ends up becoming a sort of a subplot despite the story starting off with him being pretty much the first character you see. The story literally starts off with Kimura being the first one, and Kimura is apparently working with the elder to try to save this little girl who's like the eldest granddaughter or something. And he starts off by ignoring this prince who is like this girl on the train. He looks a little bit psychotic, and he ignores her, thinking that he's actually looking for someone else. And the prince turns out she's actually an assassin, and she beats him down, wakes him back up, and threatens him, saying him that we have the girl. We're going to kill her if you don't listen to me. And ever since then, he's pretty much like a hostage on the same train. So there's plenty of plots, plenty of subplots going on within the same train, and some of those are interesting, some of those not so. I would say overall I enjoyed Bullet Train, but not that much. I felt that it's going to be a film that's eventually going to be forgotten just because it doesn't really have many very likable characters that are unusual or new, or anything that's too exciting to cry about. At the same time, I do feel that a lot of the action sequences and a lot of the comedy sequences in this are reasonably enjoyable. It is refreshing because we don't always get a film like this, and to finally see something like that after a long time is really, really nice. But at the same time, it just could have been executed a lot better, at least I feel. And now that I think about it, I could probably give the rating a 4 instead of a 3 because I did feel that the music was also reasonably enjoyable, though there are some parts I felt that the sound just kept going way out of control. And I'm not sure if it's just me, because I'm pretty sure I have a what do you call this? Like the right audio setting to watch it. So I'm not sure what really caused that. Yeah, but still. So let me just be a little bit more, I guess, understanding on this and just give it a 4. Yeah, but as for the plots and subplots, I can't give it more than a 2. And the action sequences are subpar, so maybe it's like a point 0.5. Music is like a point 0.5. Creativity maybe a 1, so that's about the 4. There's nothing really too much of a factor of rewatchability. You're not going to be rewatching this film again and again to understand too many plots because all the reveals happen very much like quite quickly. Like things are revealed very quickly that okay, this is a bad guy, okay, this is a good guy, and they remain the same character all the way to the end. The only one who remains hidden is the Hornet, who's like the killer, who everyone keeps bumping into because she's wearing this suit of this like Hello Kitty kind of costume, and you sort of know that that person has to be a killer too, because for some reason that creature grabs the briefcase in between. At first you think like, why would the thing do that? Is it just playing around? But eventually you think, no, 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 there has to be some other plot to it because they keep showing that thing in a very ominous fashion, and it's almost like they're trying to tell you that there's something else to it, uh, but yeah, it is what it is. In the very end, everyone goes out of the Big Bang in a huge, massive fight against the White Death, played by Michael Shannon. The train explodes, and it crashes into another train and just breaks apart into smithereens. And Brad Pitt somehow survives because he lands on some plush toy while the train is flying through the air in like hundreds of kilometers per hour. I mean, I get it. You want us to leave logic behind when you start this film, just by showing us how ridiculous some of the action sequences can be. And so I can't really give too much for realism. It's more of a fantasy-esque setting where characters can fight at such anime level styles and things will go flying ever so often. So yeah, you're pretty much put into that throughout, and it's really unpredictable. Look at this crash, right? And look at the guy who survived the crash. Like the fact that he's so super lucky to have survived this crash is really telling you of how much this film does not take itself seriously enough. It's just telling you that yeah, I can write whatever. This guy kills this guy kills that guy, but it's all just some big anime style fashion, you know, uh, battle going on here, and the main character is always going to have plot armor, and it's pretty much untouchable, and that's pretty much the case. You don't really feel the tension when all of these things are happening, so it's like, why have so many battle sequences if they're going to amount to literally nothing? And yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And all the other side characters pretty much died. The only real twist for the side characters is that between Lemon and Tangerine, I believe Lemon dies first. Yeah, Lemon dies first, and then Tangerine dies, only to reveal later that Lemon actually didn't die because his vest took the bullets. And Tangerine didn't even care to check Lemon's pulse, which is really strange considering these guys are like special agents. And I mean, they're assassins, right? They probably know that you could look passed out and have really low heart rate, and you really have to check if someone else is truly dead. And Tangerine doesn't really check that, which is really strange considering the way they show these assassins to be such high profile, so detailed, so meticulous, and stuff like that. It seemed really counterintuitive and unlike them, I would say, in the little time I got to know these characters. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I like to see Hiroyuki Sanada as the Elder. He seems pretty cool. He's always a cool actor. Really nice for him to show up on um, these kind of samurai-esque fights. He really pulls those off really well with his katana. He really truly is trained to use these swords. So to see his skills, it is really really cool. But he got defeated by Michael Shannon, who I'm sure in real life can barely wield a sword. Regardless, Michael Shannon's always terrifying. So yeah, he could kill me any day. I would love that. But yeah, that is what I think of the Bullet Train. Not really rewatch worthy, so I'm not gonna really give it a 5 or above. Not really something that's gonna be remembered over time. But it is a fun watch over a weekend. Really, really interesting. A lot of the jokes are pretty much accents, and that's pretty much it. I don't really see too many other great comedy. There's one accident comedy scene where the ladybug goes out with this idea to subvert the this mafia gang by showing them that they have the briefcase that they're looking for, and they don't want to reveal the contents, but because it's what do you call that, serial locked, right? It's like serial locked. So he just rolls the serial numbers to show like, see, it's locked, and he just rolls the numbers only for it to land at the perfect unlocking frequency for the bag to pop open to reveal that it's not the real bag and a bunch of ladies' clothes just pop out. I found that absolutely hilarious and one of the best scenes. It really brought my attention back into the film because at that point I was feeling like, where are they going with this? But when I saw that scene, I was like, okay, okay, they got something good going on. Keep going. But they could never repeat themselves in that way. The comedy did not entice me as well for the rest of the film, and it relied a lot on the action sequences later on, which were, yes, cool and all, nice to see, but it's not really unique or special or something that's never been done before. A lot of action sequences nowadays are done reasonably well, and if you want to challenge those, you have to do something pretty interesting. And I felt that Brad Pitt just surviving that massive train crash made no sense with him just flying around and landing on a plush toy. Sure, it's a plush toy, but at that speed, you have to be probably sealed inside some sort of a, I don't know, some massive underground chamber or a metal coffin or something for you to survive. They could have shown like someone is transporting like I don't know, a really expensive ancient coffin container or something, and miraculously Brad Pitt finds it to hide inside it, and that's what allows him to save the train crash, survive the train crash, or something like that, something out of the box to show you that okay, it can be done, but only in this unique scenario because the train crash was just nasty. But yeah, that's it. That's my idea of Bullet Train. I think if you guys have not watched it, it's probably a reasonable watch. It's a decent film. That's all I gotta say. Next one is The Last Night in Soho. So I finally got a chance to watch this film. Not sure why I took too much time to, yeah, not sure why I took that much time to eventually end up watching it. Now, first of all, let me tell you that I really enjoyed the twist in Last Night in Soho. It is a great twist, a twist that I believe has not been done before. But it's still very predictable because the characters are quite limited. And so, even at the very start of the film, the character Eloise goes to stay in this kind of like apartment building, a rental house, because she's not too happy about staying with her I think her college buddies, because she's gonna learn to be a fashion designer, and she's all these very toxic fashion designees in her college. So she's going out to stay by herself. So she goes to find a place to rent, and over there's this old lady who's handling the rental, and you can pretty much predict that this Miss Collins, being played by this old lady, has something really, some big secret hiding because obviously she's played by Diana Rigg, um, who's already a great actress. But on top of that, she does tell her that she used to live in that apartment for a very, very long time. So you kind of already link that Miss Collins is actually Sandy, who's played by Anya Taylor-Joy. So this story is basically about Eloise, who lives as a young fashion designer in New York, who's just overwhelmed by the thing the city has to give, basically, right? The tension, the fast-paced nature, the intensity of the people there, just the way they talk and the way they behave and those sorts of things. And Eloise, being this country girl, finds it really difficult to fit in. And so she goes out to find a place to rent, and she ends up dreaming about a past sort of what do you call that? Like a time in the past, basically, where she is Sandy. She ends up in the body of Sandy and experiences what Sandy does. And so Sandy hangs out with this guy called Jack, who's played by Matt Smith. They bang each other. He's like her agent. He forces her to bang other people as well. And Sandy is just not very happy about it, but Sandy lives through it eventually. But we know that Sandy eventually grows up to be Miss Collins because it's hinted very early on in the film where Miss Collins talks about how she's lived in the house and she eventually bought it from the owner. And we know that Sandy is going to get rich somehow eventually. And so there were eventually the scenes where sorry, eventually too many times. But yeah, there were the scenes where Sandy was um, told to sleep with this man forcefully, and Jack was the one forcing her to do so. And so she does get sort of how can you put it, like overpowered by these men, the feeling of helplessness, the feeling of being raped, pretty much. Even though it's what Sandy sort of put herself in. Like Sandy knew the scenario that she's gonna end up in by expecting to all of a sudden gain fame through this agent called Jack. Like she doesn't know anything about this guy. She has not got any recommendations to meet this guy. She literally talks to the bartender, trusts him even though it's her first time in the club, gets to know Jack and trusts him, even though she has no other references whatsoever. So she's pretty much a dumb girl who, at the moment she got into the car with Jack, for me, her life is already forfeit. If you are willing to get into a car with a complete stranger, just because someone tells you that, sorry, just because another stranger tells you that you can trust a stranger and you end up trusting the stranger immediately, you've signed your own death wish. There's really no two ways about it. It doesn't matter whether you're a guy or a girl. You could get your kidneys taken out and thrown on the street. You could be raped. You could be drugged and sold to some black market shit. You could just be killed because they want to. There's so many things people could do to you if you don't know what they're capable of. And, just trusting your life onto a stranger's hands is just so weird. I don't know if it's like it was a 70s or 60s thing or what, but it really didn't make sense for Sandy to all of a sudden just throw herself into the care of Jack without taking care of herself at all and not being too worried. She has no friends, literally, and she just wings it, I guess. So yeah, it's really strange. Eloise is the complete opposite. She's actually very cautious. She avoids her friends who she feels are toxic. She doesn't really hang out with too many strangers. The only one who she ends up eventually trusting is this other student. I believe it's John. I believe it's John. I don't have his photo here, but yeah, he's like this other fashion college student who ends up liking her, who talks to her ever so often, and so she eventually gets to know him, and that's a little bit more realistic, right? You don't just go out with someone the first day. You eventually get to know them. You see their behavioral pattern. You sort of know that where they will be or what they do in their free time, more or less to gauge what their crazy week could be like to understand how much of a psycho they could be, right? And then pretty much you get to know them in class and stuff like that. Yeah, but a complete stranger in the 60s with no social media and stuff at the time, it's scary, man. Like I don't know if people really did this, but if they do, then I think they would ended up in the same scenario Sandy did here. So after the number of people who ended up raping Sandy and all, they show a scene where Sandy ends up being murdered by Jack, and Eloise wakes up. So Eloise has all the while been dreaming of the right thing, all of a sudden ends up dreaming of the incorrect scenario, which is Sandy gets murdered by Jack. Why she dreams of that scenario is a mystery. Why she has the power to go into the past to have these dreams is a mystery. How Sandy reveals to be Miss Collins later on is pretty cool. She tells that actually she's the one who killed all those men, and those men didn't kill her. Okay, that's reasonably believable, but to get away with that many murders is pretty impressive, even in 1960 or 70. To me, it makes no sense because there were detectives at that time. This is the time of coats and suits. There were so many agents at the time who would look for someone who has been basically chain murdering people, like serial killers and stuff, right? So, and they all died at the same location, right? So for Sandy to be able to hide their bodies in her apartment, um, somehow by herself, and all of that just seemed a little too much because Jack was her agent. Jack would have been able to visit her, and there would definitely be some kind of suspicion. So yeah, a lot of things are a little bit grayed out. Like we're not really told too much because they couldn't really think of a way to explain it to us, I'm sure. But eventually, the reveal of Miss Collins being Sandy was nice, but very predictable. We knew that she is Sandy. Yes, so what? But it turns out that she wasn't the one who got killed. She was the one that actually killed everyone else. But wait, that doesn't make sense because does that mean Eloise's dreams are not actually reality? If that's the case, how much more did she dream that's actually fake? Like, was Sandy really the victim all along? Or did Sandy plan to get into a room to be with all those men? Because she's just a sadistic killer from the very beginning, right? We don't know that. That's kind of the pretty much the really dark twist that I'm looking forward to. It's that she really all the while just came to New York to kill people, and she never really wanted to be a singer, and or no, yeah, singer or whatever, because that's what I can think of. Because I mean, I don't really see her singing as much as killing people. She kills more people than she sings. That's what they showed in the show. She does dance pretty well though. So yeah, it's really kind of strange in that sense. She ends up becoming the serial killer. But anyway, um, Eloise doesn't figure out this thing until Miss Collins tells her. Her boyfriend John tries to come in to help her, gets stabbed. Eloise, like eventually Eloise gets haunted by all the other men who Sandy has killed, and they're the ones who came and tell her that they've been haunting her throughout, throughout this film. So they do show up here and there as some minor jump scares. Nothing too scary, very simple jump scares. Nothing too unusual. Totally expected, predictable sort of jump scares. And they show up and they sort of creep her out, only to later reveal that they need revenge on Sandy, and so Eloise leaves them to it, and Sandy sort of sits in a room as the house goes down in flames, and she just is willing to die off in those flames somehow, with all the people that she has taken with her. So the ending is pretty dark and pretty simple as well. I think Eloise just escapes at the very end. Nothing too unusual, and she does become a good fashion designer after that. But yeah, it just seemed really strange. Like, so Eloise never really figures out what caused her dreams to be close to reality. The She has gone to the authorities before to report the fact that she actually had a dream about something that happened many years back. So now that the authorities actually believe her and want to use her dreams for something even more in the future, because she's actually literally psychic, right? But they don't really address that. They don't. No one knows why Eloise is having these dreams. Besides the fact that her mother used to have them too, and her mother apparently committed suicide or something, because she was overwhelmed by these dreams. And so that's kind of the plot that they ran with. To me, Last Night in Soho is pretty captivating. It's very interesting. It has a lot of unique characters. There's a lot going on within the story itself, but it is super predictable. Um, no real explanations given as to how this girl is a psychic, how this killer kept getting away, killing so many people in the exact same location. See, the reason serial killers don't usually get caught immediately is because they kill people at different locations. So people look for a pattern. But when you're killing everyone at the same location, all you gotta do is who lives there, right? So anyone who sees this men getting off at that block would have known that all of them went roughly in this direction, so they all went up into that building. And if at least one person sees that the men have been going into that building, all the authorities have to do is go in with a bunch of dogs, and it's over. The dogs will be able to sniff out dead bodies all the way 6 feet underground if they need to, and you would find all the bodies stashed in the same house. All right, so who lives in the house? Sandy. Arrest her. Simple as that. So for her not to have an accomplice, which I thought would be Jack. I thought Jack was actually working with her to do this, because Jack wanted to gain, like he wanted to climb up in his own hierarchy, and so he just wanted to send this man to Sandy to get murdered. I thought that would have been such a cool twist to throw in there. But that wasn't the idea. They just wanted to have Sandy kill all these people, and Jack all of a sudden become the villain of the story, despite being such a charming and nice guy at the very beginning, which is so strange because Jack was like the go-to guy for these girls to go and get an agent if they want to become famous. So I don't know why all of a sudden they turned Jack into the villain, just to give Sandy more sort of, uh, how do you call it, legitimize her murders. And even then, she's still a mass killer. She killed all those men. Sure, they came to rape her, fair enough, but she kept returning to the spot. She never went to the authorities on Jack. She never looked for help. Basically, she just always went back to the same room to get raped. It makes no sense to me, at least. Like, Jack isn't the guy who chained her to the bed. She was free to run around, to do her shows and whatever anytime. All she has to do to get away from Jack eventually is just go to the authorities and inform them of Jack, and it's all over. But I don't know. People then were really, really strange. I'm not sure what she was afraid of, why people just don't want to go look for help. It really boggles my mind in these situations because the first thing you would do, as you're told to, is go look for help. Look for the police, look for the enforcers. But if the story is such that the enforcers are all evil, they're the ones who are doing all these bad things, it makes total sense. You want to avoid the cops, right? But there was a scenario where Sandy does get approached by a cop, in fact, and she's just like, I want to be in this. I'm just too deep in it. I don't want help. I want to stay in this situation. I'm perfectly fine being raped, sort of scenario. And she just continues to be raped, and she's just so happy about it. Like she ends up killing all those people instead. It's just so weird, the decision making of these people. They know they're in trouble. They enjoy the trouble. They want to put themselves in that situation, and then they blame everyone else for it. And so I felt this movie is just about a really stupid girl in a very stupid time, and putting herself in very stupid situations and being a psycho killer who just enjoyed killing people towards the very end. And Eloise is like the most innocent in the story. A generic teenager who just wanted to go and become this fashion star, struggles, becomes reclusive. He's a country girl trying to survive the city. And then all of a sudden, something unusual happens to her, which is she gets visions about the past, lives through those visions, but all of a sudden her vision becomes wrong in the sense where it shows that Jack killed Sandy, but in reality, Sandy actually killed everyone else. Why her visions became wrong towards the very end, why those people who were haunting her are the ones who wanted revenge, but she never really could see their story, was also mysterious. I thought maybe there's some other dark magic blocking her vision. Perhaps it's some guilt or something that Sandy was able to do to block off her dreams or something. I don't know. It's just really strange because the only real regret Eloise had was the fact that she couldn't really meet her mother, and so when she does eventually get to that in her dreams, it's yeah. I mean, it was a whole other like separate plot altogether. That's just meddling with her guilt. But yeah. Anyway, really strange. I'm not sure if it's the guilt of her mother that made her feel that the visions would go wrong. But if that's the case, why are the rest of the visions okay? Why only that particular moment that goes wrong? Not really explained. Very strange. But yeah, for me, last night in Soho is a 4 out of 10. It is a good watch. It is a decent film. Very predictable, excuse me, and nothing too new. Not really worth a rewatch, I would say. You could rewatch it, but you're not really going to get much out of the second watch. And nothing too exciting. A bit of a musical here and there, but the actresses did great, I think, and of course Matt Smith. They all nailed their jobs pretty well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I like the twist at the very end, but you know it's coming, so it's not really that fun anymore. So yeah, these are the few movies that I had lined up for you guys today. The very last one is gonna be Halloween Ends, which I'll probably be throwing a bit. Let me just look for it. Okay, there we go. Halloween Ends. So this is the very last film that I recently watched. I do want to go over the TV series House of the Dragon, but I'll save that for another one perhaps. I felt that Halloween Ends is one of the worst films ever made in this era, day, and generation. I wanted to give it a 2 out of 10 initially, but then I thought, for IMDb's sake, I have to downvote it even further just so people don't ever watch this film. But realistically, I think this film is a 2 out of 10. So if you want me to be honest, it takes a two for me. But that's only because it actually has a story, and I have to give it a point for a story. It's a bad story, yes, but it has a story, and everything else about it was just so really really terrible, disgusting, trash, dog shit, bad. This is one of the worst movies ever made in history. One of the worst horror movies ever made. This is the worst Halloween film ever made. This is the worst movie Jamie Lee Curtis has ever acted in, as far as I know. This is the worst movie any of these actors would have acted in, as far as I've watched, because I'm not really watching any of the other films. Um, the director, David Gordon Green, should never direct a film again if this is his intention. Um, I'm very, very sad for John Carpenter, who was the writer of the original Halloween, to have stooped so low to write such a trash plot, which does not only not focus on the Halloween aspect of the serial killer Michael Myers, it brings in some discount disciple sort of guy, this guy called Corey, and he's not even threatening. Like in the start, he turns out to be a little bit menacing. It looks like he's going to be a bit of a threat and a bit of a mystery towards the very end. And it seems like Michael Myers has sort of chosen him as like the next Michael Myers or something. But none of that turns out to be a reality because Corey is just he kills himself to frame Laurie for murder, and Laurie is like becoming more and more of an irritating character. I'm not sure why Jamie Lee Curtis wants to be so irritating of a character, but she just becomes more and more irritating of a character. And Michael Myers is basically a sub character in his own story. It's it's the same thing with all these recent films we've been watching, right? In Doctor Strange is not the main character anymore. In I believe Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's more about the Wasp. Those are Marvel films. Sure, Marvel likes to make their own characters, sub-characters, like, that's their thing. But why are these movies, like these classic, iconic characters such as Michael Myers, ending up in these situations? Like, Michael Myers is one of the greatest killers ever made, right? There's Freddy Krueger, there's Michael Myers, there's Jason from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like these are like the big three, right? American esque killers, fantasy style killers, right? There are of course the realistic ones who are just even more creepy, but yeah, among the fantasy ones, these are like the big three. There's so many others, but these are the notable ones that people talk about. But it's really, really strange that we end up in the situation where they're not really respected anymore. They're not really given their time and respect that they got. You know what? I actually feel that Halloween 2018 is way, way better than what I initially thought it was, just because of how different it is. It is since then. Is it how? It's not. Is it this one? Halloween. Is this the 2018 film? Let me just check. This is 2018, right? This is Halloween 2018. The first time Laurie Strode is acted by Jamie Lee Curtis, and Michael Myers is essentially uh, sort of reborn, and he goes around killing people. He escapes prison after 40 years. I feel that this film, although it has its ups and downs, is way better than the other two films that came from this. So the Halloween 2 that came out, I think, 2 years later, and this most recent one are really, really bad. For me, my favorite Halloween remains to be the 2007 Halloween. I do know that the original one, I think, what is it, 64, 70 something or what, is actually probably better, but I like the 2007 one because that was actually my introduction to Halloween. That was honestly the first time I watched it, and I did end up liking it ever since. And so it holds a special place in my heart, even though I do agree that um, the original Halloween in the I think it's 80s or 70s was done better, but the 2007 one was nice as a remake. With a little kid growing up to Michael Myers, and Michael Myers truly just being an absolute menace in the film. That was really, really well done. 2018 didn't really do too much justice to Michael Myers, but it did have one really, really good scene of Michael Myers doing this killing spree act during Halloween night, where he just goes around the neighborhood killing people. I felt that scene was just so good. The way the music plays and the way Michael turns his head to go pick up the knife and just start killing people is almost like a calling. It's almost like he's no longer the one in the driving seat. He's just watching the shape go and kill people, and he's just watching this as a spectator who enjoys, his body just going out there killing people. It's sort of the thing that you can look at the killer and you know that they're not all there. At the same time, they're enjoying it. And that's the kind of feeling that Michael Myers has to deliver, and he delivered that in 2018, where he really embodies the shape, right? This stalker that just shows up that just wants to brutally kill people, and that was so so cool, so well done. What is this trash? What is this trash? This is pure trash. This is like the trash that you really don't ever want to even smell. You want to hold your breath before you take it out, and you want to hope that the truck that picks it up is there right away waiting, so you don't ever have to see it even hit. You don't even want to put it in your trash can. That's how bad it is, and that's how bad this thing was. This is really, really bad. So yeah, I hope Jamie Lee Curtis personally does not ever act in a horror movie again because she doesn't really do a very good job at it. And also the way Michael Myers meets his end, I really, he should have just taken down Laurie with him to show that Michael sort of completes his mission. Even though they want to show that, oh, the daughter comes to save her. I mean, the granddaughter comes to save her. Like, I mean, I get it, but this is Halloween. You don't want a good ending in Halloween. You want the worst ending in Halloween. You want people to be terrified of Michael Myers. And that's not what they achieved in this. It was the exact opposite. And also, Michael Myers is not really at his full strength in this film because he is often defeated by Corey. But there are other instances where he can overpower people. He does have still enough strength to lift a woman up and place the knife through her chest and pin her to a wall in the classic Michael Myers style where he lifts people up. But I don't think he can do that to a man, and he can't seem to fight off any real people. And Corey is just stronger than him. It could also possibly be that Corey is physically just stronger and he doesn't know how to use his strength yet. So they could have focused more on that to show that now Michael Myers is not at his peak strength. He needs Corey to help him, but they could have shown it a little differently where Michael Myers is in the sewers all this while, but he was actually being worshipped by someone who wanted to heal him, and so they've been working on his wounds, at least to make it realistic, like how this guy who took so many gunshots and knife stabs in the previous film is still alive. They could have shown like there's this person who thought that he's actually someone who just got hurt, decided to help him, or someone who worships him for the killings that he does, who's also psychotic, who thinks that he should continue to live to purge this town of whatever it is they want to purge it off, right? And so they heal him, they treat him, and that's the reason why Michael Myers stays alive. They could have come up with so many other interesting plots to show that Michael Myers is still recovering, still strong. He just needs a little time and help before he's perfectly healed. And so Corey is going to step in for a bit to just do what he can to delay the police and delay the people of town from paying attention to the sewers where the shape really is. And so when the attention is turned to Corey, maybe Corey finally gets defeated, only for Michael Myers to rise again during Halloween and end up going on a rampage. And that would have been so freaking cool. Though to show that Michael Myers actually would have cared for this sort of like a disciple, sort of like a student of his, that gets killed off by these people, because he's just not as capable or as terrifying as what Michael really is. And Michael, having recovered from his wounds, could have gone out there and killed all those people to take a revenge. And we would have actually been able to back him up further that yes, he's evil, yes, he's a serial killer, yes, he trained another serial killer, but now all he cares about the fact is the revenge he's trying to take. Um, because Corey gets defeated and he's trying to use that to justify his means of taking revenge. That would have been a much more interesting story, at least something I could write just out of the blue by talking to you guys. It's not something I wrote down, I have nothing with me to write down, in fact. But yeah, it's just so strange that they went with a completely bizarre and terrible plot that no one cares about, no one really enjoys. And yeah, Halloween ends. Thank God it ended. I don't ever want to hear anything Halloween related again unless they are remaking the entire franchise. Then sure, why not? Remake it, a new Michael Myers, and please don't ever cast Jamie Lee Foxx as Jamie Lee Curtis, or sorry, not Jamie Lee Foxx, Jamie Foxx. Jeez, Jamie Lee Curtis is anything remotely close to whatever they did in this film. Um, but yeah, that is what it is for me. You know what? I'm gonna just leave it at one. It's just bad, guys. This is one of the. If you want to know like a really bad film or a really bad TV series, you can watch Halloween Ends and you can watch She-Hulk. Like I only watched the first episode, but trust me, that was a perfect example of what not to do. It's really, really bad. And I've been hearing so much trash about She-Hulk ever since the first episode that I'm just glad I kept to that. But yeah, it is. How are you guys doing? It is No Nut November, No Shave November for the rest of you, who can't really hold it in, but it is what it is. Hope you guys are having a fantastic time out there. Going to catch some awesome movies. It's been a while since I made this reviews. It's been a while since I'm back, and so I decided to make a really long one today just to go through these sets of films that I've been watching recently. But yeah, I do have a bunch of other things lined up as well, a bunch of cool TV series and movies. But I will be catching you guys to some video games that I shall be revisiting, and especially one that I owe myself to complete, and that is Inscription. Wow, which has been such a while. I mean, it's been a month since I actually played that game. It's been literally a month since I played it. So yeah, I'm gonna be super rusty, and you guys are gonna make so much fun of me, and can't wait for that. But yeah, that's about it for me. I'm not sure where we go from here, but we'll just keep going. Take care, guys.